People around the world mourned the death of Anthony Bourdain on June 8, 2018, because he was more than just a famous chef. Through food travel and brave storytelling, he brought people together. Anthony wasn't just a voice for the food world, he was a voice for anyone who had ever felt restless, curious, or hungry for something more. But while his life looked like a dream on the outside, it wasn't always that way. For years, Bourdain's ex-wife Olivia Busia-Bourdain kept quiet about They had a lot of problems together, but now she's talking about what it was really like to be married to a man whose brilliance was matched only by his chaos. In this video, we'll show you what it was like. Anthony Bourdain was born in Manhattan on June 25, 1956. His father, Pierre, was a French Catholic who spent the summers in France working in the classical music business, and his mother, Gladys, was a strict editor at the According to the New York Times, Bourdain's parents probably wanted him to read PR and play the cello as a child instead of sneaking into restaurant kitchens and eating oysters off of a fisherman's boat. Bourdain's childhood in Leonia, New Jersey was not like most suburban childhoods. He had plenty of love and attention, but he did envy his classmates' wild, unsupervised freedom. While he was doing his duty in Boy Scouts and probably being told to respect the French side of the family, he was quietly. Anthony tried an oyster on a family vacation to France, and that was the first sign of his desire for something more rebellious. After graduating from Dwight Englewood School in 1973, Bourdain tried college at Vassar, but after 2 years, the allure of academia couldn't compare to the sweaty, chaotic kitchens of Provincetown, Massachusetts, where he worked in seafood restaurants like the Lobster Pot. The energy, grit, and cast of strange characters working behind the bar. In fact, back in the mid-1980s, long before he became the globe-trotting food icon we all knew Bourdain, he was hustling on the road as a storyteller. This decision led him to the Culinary Institute of America, where he sharpened his skills before graduating in 1978. From there, Bourdain stormed into the New York City restaurant scene, running kitchens at hotspots like Sullivan on First Avenue. But while he could sear a steak and write a menu, his real talent was telling a story. In Manhattan's Lower East Side, and started sending unsolicited stories to a local literary magazine called Between C and D. One of his first published stories was about a chef looking for heroin, an honest, gritty story that reflected the chaos he often saw in the food world. He didn't stop there, though. In 1985, he joined a writing workshop led by Gordon Lish, a famous editor known for giving harsh feedback that helped him hone his raw voice. But even with talent, it wasn't easy to break through in 1990. Random House gave Bourdain a small book deal after he impressed one of their editors. His first book, Bone in the Throat, came out in 1995 and was a murder mystery in the food world. It had all the wit and sharpness you'd expect from Bourdain, but it didn't sell very well. Unfazed, he paid for his own book tour and walked the streets to promote it. His second book, Go Bamboo, came out a few years later and failed just as badly. For most people, that would have been the end of the dream, but Bourdain wasn't most people. People noticed that while his writing didn't immediately pay off, it set the stage for what would come next: television. His famous memoir, Kitchen Confidential, blew the lid off the restaurant business and put him in the public eye. The Food Network was interested in his honest sarcasm and deep respect for food and culture, and they offered him his first show, Cook's Tour, which debuted in 2002. The idea behind the show was simple: travel the world, eat everything, and talk about it. In 2005, Bourdain found his voice with Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations, on the Travel Channel. This wasn't your average food show, there was plenty of eating, but what made it unique was how Bourdain connected with people. It wasn't about fancy restaurants, it was about street food, local traditions, and the stories behind the meals. He had a way of mixing humor with deep insight, which made you laugh 1 minute and think deeply the next. This was one of the show's most memorable moments. Dan and his crew were filming in Beirut in 2006, but when the Israel-Lebanon conflict broke out, it turned into a terrifying experience. While stuck in a hotel with other patriots, Bourdain documented the tension, fear, and humanity of the situation with the help of a local fixer, whom he named Mr. Wolf, after the character in Pulp Fiction who solves problems. The crew was eventually evacuated by U.S. Marines. That episode wasn't just about food, it was about survival, resilience, and the unexpected. It earned Bourdain an Emmy nomination and cemented his reputation as a storyteller who could tackle topics beyond the plate. Nigella Lawson once said that Bourdain's voice was unlike anyone else's, that he had an incredibly beautiful style that could switch from poetic to hilariously vulgar in the same breath. But while Bourdain was having all of this success in public, his personal life was a roller coaster. Anthony's first marriage to Nancy Putkowski started out like this. Meeting at Dwight Englewood School in New Jersey, Bourdain was drawn to Nancy's rebellious side and followed her to Vassar College in New York, where their relationship grew stronger. By 1985, they were married. Nancy was there for Bourdain through the tough early years of his culinary career, helping him work his way up in the kitchen world. But as Bourdain's career took off, especially after Kitchen Confidential became a hit, things started to change. The fame and the constant travel started to get old. When Anthony Bourdain became famous, the spotlight started to shine on all of them. Nancy, who liked a quieter, more private life, wasn't into the growing public attention that came with it. Over time, the relationship started to show cracks, and in 2005, they got a divorce. However, Bourdain always spoke highly of Nancy and the role she played in his life. Anthony's life took a new turn when he met Octavia Busia, an Italian businesswoman and mixed martial artist. Famous chef Eric Ripert, who was friends with Bourdain, thought they'd be a great match. Even though they were 22 years apart in age, there was undeniable chemistry between Bourdain and Octavia. At the time, Octavia was managing a New York restaurant called Geisha, and their shared interest in the restaurant business quickly brought them together. Octavia's journey to the US and the restaurant industry was anything but normal. She was born in a small town in Italy and had been studying to become a dentist before she changed her mind. Going to the US with only $300 in her pocket, she worked in New York's competitive restaurant scene until she got the job as general manager of Geisha. It was there that she met Bourdain, and their relationship took off right away. Bourdain was fascinated by her story, and they quickly became inseparable. They were already talking about tattoos in a short time, and by 2007, Bourdain had not only finalized his divorce but also married Olivia. After Octavia's long restaurant shifts, they would talk for hours about her day and Bourdain's past work in the business. This may have seemed like a boring activity to some, but for them it was a meaningful way to connect. As their relationship grew, they had to deal with the challenges that came with their busy careers. Octavia worked right up until she gave birth, while Bourdain's rising fame took a toll on his personal life. As Bourdain's career took him farther away from home, his marriage began to suffer from the stress of being away from his wife so often, even though he loved being a father. As a result, they remained connected through their love of food, culture, and the unpredictable nature of their lives. Although he loved being a dad to his daughter, and his relationship with Olivia couldn't handle the stress, and in 2016 they decided to split up. Just like he did after his first marriage, Anthony moved on almost right away, even before his divorce was finalized. This time he was with Asia Argento. When Bourdain met her for the first time, his friend Steed said it was like having a teenage crush, and Bourdain couldn't help but gush, comparing the feeling to. During his first serious relationship, Bourdain couldn't stop gushing about Argento in interviews and on Instagram. He had always been known for being open and honest, and as their relationship grew, it was clear that he was fully committed. He was a vocal supporter of Argento, especially when she became a leader in the Hashem II movement. He admired her courage when she spoke out against Harvey Weinstein, and he was always there for her. Besides being romantically involved, they also respected and understood each other's careers. But as strong and passionate as their relationship was, it wasn't always easy. Both Bourdain and Argento had careers that required a lot of travel and kept them apart for long periods of time. They chose to keep their relationship open, giving each other the freedom to pursue their own paths while still staying close. Distance and time apart eventually caused problems. Their busy lives and intense personalities made things more difficult to handle. However, Bourdain seemed happier than ever with Argento in his life. He talked about how much happier he was with her, feeling a sense of joy and fulfillment he hadn't felt in a long time. He wasn't interested in getting married again, but he was open to living together and finding comfort in the simplicity of their connection. Despite his initial excitement about fame, it was starting to feel like a cage around him. He didn't like the attention, the constant expectations, or how it seemed to separate him from the things that used to matter the most to him. It was as if the more successful he became, the less connected he felt to the real world, and that distance only seemed to grow. His relationship with Asia Argento was also falling apart, and the tension between them was palpable. He felt hurt by the rumors of her affair and couldn't get rid of the feeling of betrayal, especially when he learned that it had happened in a hotel that had special meaning to them. The emotional weight of it all was too much for him to bear, and even though he tried to reach out to Argento and ask if there was anything he could do to fix things, she ignored him. Their relationship, which had once been full of promise, had broken down into an exhausting back and forth that. The pressures of his career and personal problems made him feel even more alone, and during the chaos, Bourdain decided he had to change. He stopped using heroin and cocaine, but he still drank a lot. This wasn't a perfect recovery story, but it was a choice that let him follow his dreams and share his unique point of view with the world. What made Bourdain's journey relatable was that he wasn't afraid to show the cracks even after he was clean. He didn't act like quitting drugs erased his problems. As someone who worked in the high-stress restaurant business, he was open about his ongoing battles with depression and the heavy thoughts that sometimes crowded his mind. For many, his candor was a source of comfort, showing that even famous people had the same problems. But looking back, his relationship with darkness was complicated. He talked about death and suicide a lot in his writing and interviews, not in a shocking way, but as if he were always talking to his own pain. Weren't just fleeting thoughts, they hinted at a struggle that never really went away. It's hard to deny that his final act was the culmination of battles he'd been fighting for most of his life.